Toy Story 3 is a movie devoid of artistry, and while that may sound like some jackass film student language, it's the closest thing I can physically say to my feelings on this movie. Upon my one viewing of this movie for my review, I enjoyed myself, but I don't know how much of that came from it being a good movie. Parasite, one of the best movies ever, it's one of my favorites. It's what many would consider perfected. It's focused, razor-precise execution of a fantastic story. Toy Story 3 is a movie that adds more confusion by telling Toy Story 1's plot sort of beat for beat and also mixing in Toy Story 2's. Other toys don't trust Woody because he's kind of a tool, but then Woody learns his lessons and the toys also realize they were wrong. The only difference this time is a few specifics and the number at the box office. Maybe this is just me, but I think this marks a transition period between what I believe is classic Pixar, Up, Ratatouille, WALL-E, A Bug's Life. That last one, not so much, but you get what I'm saying. Now you could argue since this transition period is fairly arbitrary, it's just me growing up. I mean, it does align fairly well with when I began to engage with movies on a deeper level. Maybe Coco or Inside Out are on the same quality as Ratatouille, Up, WALL-E, my favorites. Just kidding. I'm right, you're wrong. Anyway, let's review this shit. Toy Story 3 makes no sense. All the character development from the first two films was thrown out of the window in the name of retreading the same basic plot. Which, to be clear, is not my issue. I get that this is something they did intentionally because they went to college or whatever, and they have English and writing degrees that a dumbass like me doesn't. My issue is that this feels like a dumbed down imitation rather than an homage. The only real thing they did was also rip off the plot of Toy Story 2 and make it a prison break movie for like 10 minutes. Also, what exactly is this villain's motivation? Even if he was a terrible person because of his traumatic past, why did he have to put them in the shitty room? I didn't watch Toy Story 3 for the series, but from what I remember, this villain idea was executed a lot better in that movie. I know many of you are sitting there getting mad at me for comparing this movie to its predecessors time and time again, but this movie is so obviously trying to emulate them that I just can't ignore it. Outside of this, Toy Story 3 also marked the point where Disney's in-house studios started making competent 3D animated movies as opposed to Chicken Little, which they had been making over and over and over again for the last 10 years. I'm not going to pretend to know the inner workings of Disney, but it's clear that once Disney in-house started pumping out okay movies, Pixar began to falter. I'm not going to theorize why this is, but I think it illustrates a lot of my concerns with Toy Story 3. Speaking of my concerns, let's talk about me. I've seen this movie a lot, but on my most recent watch, I noticed a couple things. One, this movie makes a good use of a great deal of its cast, particularly Mr. Potato Head. I also noticed that the whole thing with the tortilla kind of reminds me of when companies used to try to do internet memes, so I guess that was the point of that. I don't know, 2010 was a fucking ride, man. Also, why the fuck do they believe Miss Potato Head when she says Auntie was putting them in the attic, but not Woody? Again, they didn't establish a real reason for them not to trust Woody, so what's the fucking point? I know this is a dumb detail, and the fact that I keep going on about it is probably encouraging you to click off this video. But the thing is, that's not what Pixar does. Pixar creates these honest and believable characters and makes inanimate objects feel more human than 90% of actors. The only reason I brought up Parasite earlier was because funnily enough they have the same Rotten Tomatoes score, which pisses me off a little. Rotten Tomatoes is something that I could make a whole video about. Well, one of these movies is the incarnate of a perfect film, and the other is a film that people very, very much enjoy. And in a way, I think that's beautiful. Movies like this are meant to be enjoyed, and while I wouldn't say this is a great Pixar movie or anything, I enjoyed it.